speaker today is Marlowe Weather. Our special guests today include Marlowe's mother, Jane Weather, father, Ted Weather, and his fiancee, Pam Thomas, uncle, Eugene Long III, that's Gene 3 to Marlowe. Special friends including Meredith Watson, Emily Wright, Carolyn McDonald, Russell De La Cuna, Echo Adu, and Kathleen Hersey. Please join me in welcoming them. Marlowe is a lifer. She's been at prep since preschool, 15 years at Cavalier. Marlowe is a member of SDC, Model UN, Art Club, and Squad M, competing as our #1 mathlete for the last 2 years, and again at or near the top of our standings to win the APDS Math Team Book Award for the current year. Marlowe is active in social through 10th grade cotillion, has a hobby that you will soon better understand, swam for prep from 8th to 11th grade, played volleyball from 9th to 11th, has sung in chorus throughout high school, and is a member of our exemplary trio, both last year, state runners-up, and this year, competition soon. Next year, Marlowe plans to pursue studies in a STEM-related field at a fortunate university, emphasis very fortunate, to be determined, ladies and gentlemen, Marlowe Weather.
Before I begin, quick thanks to Mr. Schaefer for that wonderful introduction, of course, and for being a fantastic advisor and teacher the past 4 years, to all of my teachers for caring so much about all of our educations, not just my own, to my parents, Pam, the rest of my family for always supporting me, and to my friends for being wonderful people to be around. Now, raise your hand if you've ever used this website. I mean, pretty much all of us have, right? Now, keep your hand raised if you've ever actually made an edit to this site. That's not quite so many. But what is Wikipedia anyway? The first sentence on Wikipedia's page on itself says the following, quote, Wikipedia is a multilingual, free, online encyclopedia written and maintained by a community of volunteers through open collaboration and a wiki-based editing system. That's accurate, of course, but let's dig a little deeper. First, I'd like to talk about the project as a whole. I like numbers. Let's start with some numbers. Wikipedia was launched on January 15th, 2001 by Larry Sanger and Jimmy Wales. It now hosts well over 6 million articles in English alone, with over 4 billion words in these articles, and over 300 million across all languages. It's the 7th most popular website in the world. But what is the purpose of Wikipedia? You'll hear me referring to the project a few times throughout the speech. That's because that's exactly what Wikipedia is. It's a project that thousands of people come together and work on, and it'll never really be finished. But Wikipedia has also defined its principles and goals within these 5 pillars. First and foremost, Wikipedia is an encyclopedia. This may seem pretty simple, but it means it's no more and it's no less. It's not a place to advertise or spout opinions or publish original work. It's not a dictionary and it's not a newspaper. It's an encyclopedia. Secondly, Wikipedia is written from a neutral point of view. The project strives to keep that neutrality and give different points of view their due weight. This pillar is also what helps ensure accuracy on the platform. Thirdly, Wikipedia is free content that anyone can use, edit, and distribute. This largely deals with the legal aspects of things like copyright and licensing, but it also means that no one should ever have to pay to access Wikipedia. Next, Wikipedia's editors should treat each other with respect and civility. This pillar helps keep the project running by making sure that it's a largely collaborative rather than combative space. And finally, this is my favorite, Wikipedia has no firm rules. This one's incredibly important, as Wikipedia is a place where the spirit rather than the letter of the law matters more, and guidelines constantly evolve and change as new situations arise. I do want to take a minute and talk about reliability, because you always hear things about how teachers hate Wikipedia because anyone can go on and just add false information, and how you should always instead use the blue links at the bottom. And largely that's true. You should absolutely never ever cite Wikipedia for any academic work, but using those references isn't a bad idea, as it can give you a good starting point for some more reliable information, but of course you want to use your discretion and make sure you're using academic sources and not, say, tabloids. However, in my experience, Wikipedia is fantastic for your own personal debates and questions, as most articles are reliable enough to answer a quick or not so quick question or two. It is important to note, though, as Wikipedia's internal page on its own reliability states, that, quote, articles are only as good as the editors who have been editing them, their interests, biases, education, and background, and the efforts they have put into a particular topic or article. That comment on biases is particularly important. Wikipedia, like most of the world, has plenty of issues with bias. But because of the statement, articles on major topics are generally more reliable, where you have a bunch of editors able to look over the same content. But when you get into the particularities of a subject with only one or two active editors, it's often better to look somewhere else. Now, let's look behind the curtain, if you will, at editing. I will note that I don't have nearly enough time to give this subject the attention it deserves, so if you want to know more, please come talk to me. For most people, when they click on the Edit tab at the top of any given Wikipedia page, it'll look something like this. For this example, I've used the page on Jeopardy, one of my other loves, as many of you who know me well know. You can see a few interesting buttons and banners in this image, but I want to focus on what's in the center here, the main editing window. Let me make this a little more legible for you. This article, like most articles, begins with a whole host of templates shown in curly brackets, with the text only starting well beyond these. You can't even see it up here. One of these is something called an info box. The info box is often the first and even the only thing that readers pay attention to. It's that box you see giving a general overview of a subject at the beginning of an article. In the case of Jeopardy, it begins like this, though it of course extends to give far more information. I mention these templates because, from the reader's point of view, it may seem like Wikipedia must be pretty simple behind the scenes. After all, it's just a bunch of text, right? But this complexity, as shown in these templates, actually extends far beyond what you may see on any article. But to get into what goes on outside of articles, I have to talk about namespaces for a minute. This is where everything, including the articles themselves, lives. Articles live in the main namespace, often shortened to main space, which has no prefix, so you don't see that namespace :page title format on articles. There are actually 30 active namespaces, and I will certainly not be going over all these, but I do want to discuss the Wikipedia namespace. This is where the majority of discussions about the project occur, including everything I'm discussing in the rest of this portion. First, let me mention administrators and bureaucrats. There are several other user rights, but these two are pretty crucial. Both of these permissions require a community vote. Candidates have to be nominated, give a statement, and answer questions. This voting process, critically, like all of Wikipedia's, is based on consensus. Numbers don't win, the strongest arguments win, and decisions attempt to incorporate any legitimate concerns raised by any editors. For requests for editorship, in practice, a request with over 75% support is found to have consensus to promote, and 65 to 75% support is left up to the discretion of the bureaucrats, who can find consensus to promote or no consensus, in which case the request fails. Admins, among other things, are often relied upon to provide input, close discussions, and generally monitor a few notice boards. Here's a list of all of the administrators' notice boards, but I only have time to talk about two in particular that I use the most. The edit warning notice board is for people who have broken guidelines like the 3-revert rule. Editors must not make more than 3 reversions of another editor's work on one page within 24 hours. This rule is in place to encourage people to discuss contentious content rather than try and brute force it in by repeatedly making the same edit. Those who break this rule are often blocked, and severe instances where multiple users are edit warned can result in page protection, only allowing users with certain rights to edit a page. Administrator intervention against vandalism exists for users to report obvious cases of persistent vandalism, vandalism being defined as any intentional edit against the goals of the projects, as stated earlier in the 5 pillars. This often ends up, again, with the reported user getting blocked. Clearly, admins are expected to solve a lot of issues, and this is truly just the tip of the iceberg. But when problems abound beyond the abilities of a few admins, you get taken to ARPCOM. The arbitration committee, known as ARCOM, is the end-all be-all of dispute resolution. It is a last resort, used only when all other methods of resolving issues with conduct have failed. This is pretty serious business. Some of the formalities of the process are detailed on the slide, but I want to talk about what exactly they can do. ARCOM has a lot of power. They can remove and reinstate privileges and blocks. They can formally ban users from editing, which require an appeal to ARCOM to overturn. They can impose sanctions on contentious topic areas that foster misconduct. And while their decisions are amended somewhat frequently when they fail to achieve the goals intended by the committee, ARCOM, with few exceptions, has the final say. Cases sometimes even receive media attention. Just one example of this is the Scientology case back in 2009, which resulted in the ruling all IP addresses owned or operated by the Church of Scientology and its associates, broadly interpreted, are to be blocked. This block was actually rescinded last year, as this source of disruption has died down considerably since 2009, but at the time, such a widespread block, why is the encyclopedia that anyone can edit blocking so many people, was considered unprecedented and received attention from ABC News, The Guardian, and the New York Times, among others. So ultimately, you do not want to mess around with ARCOM. But as long as you can follow the rules, you'll be fine. And by and large, that's what I've done. Here's a bit of a timeline of my edits. Like many people, I needed something to do when we got stuck at home at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. I had always spent a lot of time just reading seemingly random articles on Wikipedia that I'd found interesting, and occasionally I'd find a typo or some grammatical error or something that I just knew was wrong. Until then, though, I could never bring myself to actually make a change. I would get anxious and nervous. After a significant enough amount of time born at home, though, I decided to go ahead and try it out, and I finally made an account at the end of April 2020. As you can see, actually like most of my hobbies, I drift back and forth between being active and, well, not, but I always end up going back. Here you can see a few milestones, specifically when I was granted several user rights. Auto-confirmed and extended confirmed are automatically granted at certain milestones. Auto-confirmed at 4 days and 10 edits, and extended confirmed at 30 days and 500 edits. Rollback I did have to apply for. In 2021, I completed a counter-vandalism course, which did include a final exam, after which I applied for and obtained rollback to more quickly combat vandalism. Specifically, rollback allows me to revert another user's changes in one click, which can be used pretty recklessly, so that's why there's a requirement to apply for that permission. Here you can see some of my chief areas of interest. Fixing typos is probably my biggest contribution. It's easy to do, and I find them often enough, so there's no reason not to help out there. Copy editing usually takes more effort, as most of the articles I look at really need the help, but it's a good outlet to avoid me personally attacking my friends' papers quite as much. I'll also answer the occasional edit request to protected articles as well, as those are pretty quick. But you do get some funny ones, such as the following request I found on the article Cheetah this past November. I've censored the IP out of courtesy, but here it is. The article mentions that a cheetah can run 50 to 80 miles per hour. But someone wanted to change that, writing, quote, cheetahs run at 70 miles per hour. If they ran 50 to 80 miles per hour, the cat's speed might look messy. Yes, written pretty much exactly as it's shown up there. This request got deleted. In contrast, here's a more standard edit request, more akin to the type I usually handle, where the requester is very clear about what they want changed and why, and in this case, they've even based it off of a source in the article. As I've spent more time on the project, I've moved into counter-vandalism, reverting all of those edits, adding silly, useless, or even just rude material. I'm not kidding when I say rude. Sometimes vandals will even directly attack me, so this and some other areas of editing are certainly not for the lighthearted. In February 2021, for example, someone told me, listen, you, I have no pity for you. However, the information you confronted me for taking down is wrong, so back off. This person had deleted all of the text on the article for William Rankin, a Scottish mechanical engineer. I handled this in a pretty standard way by throwing a template on the IP's user talk page, advising them not to attack other editors. And I don't enjoy writing articles as much as other areas, as I tend to like the smaller stuff better. There's a bit less pressure. But it is nice, and with a little bit of effort, I can get a new article on the main page in the Did You Know section, which is pretty cool. I did that with this article that I wrote early on Queen drummer Roger Taylor's box set, The Law. I simply saw it didn't have an article, and it passed some basic notability guidelines, so I went ahead and wrote it myself. When I started editing Wikipedia, I thought it would just be a short-lived experience to bide my time stuck at home, and as I mentioned earlier, it took a bit of convincing myself to actually start editing. However, it's become something that I truly find enjoyable, and I constantly find myself coming back to it. So, my message for all of you, but especially my fellow seniors as we prepare to enter a new stage of our lives, is this. If you find yourself wanting to try something new, whether that be something as simple as a new food, or a new experience, or like myself, a new hobby, go for it. Thank you.